During the Second Age, 20 magical rings were forged by Sauron to seduce the rulers of Middle-earth. Disguised as a benevolent entity called Anatar, Sauron taught the elven smiths of Eregion the skill of ring crafting. The elven smiths forged 19 rings, 3 rings for the elven kings, 7 rings for the dwarf lords, and 9 rings for mortal men. But all of them, save the elves, were deceived, as Sauron secretly forged the one ring at the fires of Mount Doom, seeking to bring all the rings and their wearers under his sway. The 19 lesser rings were linked to the power of the One, which Sauron had imbued with all his cruelty, malice, and power, and the wearers of the lesser rings were slowly corrupted by the influence of the One. Then an alliance of elves and humans resisted Sauron's ring and fought against the forces of Mordor. They won the Battle of Dagorlad, when Isildur cut the ring from Sauron's hand upon the slopes of Orodruin, and the ring fell to the son of the king of Gondor. But just as he was about to destroy the ring in the fires of Mount Doom, his mind was corrupted by the power of the ring, and he kept it for himself. Later, he was killed at the Battle of the Gladden Fields, and the ring was lost at the bottom of the great river Anduin, where it lay for thousands of years. One day, the creature Gollum discovered it and brought it to his lair deep inside the Misty Mountains, where it tortured him and poisoned his mind. Then he lost it to the hobbit Bilbo Baggins. After many years, the wizard Gandalf determined that this ring was the One Ring, and an effort was devised to destroy the ring in the fires of Mount Doom. We begin the story in the elven city of Rivendell, with the Fellowship of the Ring preparing to depart on its mission to save Middle-earth from the evils of Sauron and his armies of Nazgul, orcs, beasts, and evil men.
Good evening, fellow gamers, and welcome to the Solo Gamers Club. Tonight, I'll be playing War of the Ring by Ares Games. After posting episode 1 of this series, I discovered that I made several errors during the playthrough and during setup. I want to produce as accurate a playthrough as possible, so I've decided to relaunch the series from scratch. I apologize to the viewers of the previous video for any inconvenience. In this playthrough, I'll be demonstrating a solitaire module that I developed for the game called Alone in Middle-earth. This system allows the solitaire player to control the Free People's player, while the operation of the shadow player is aided by a roll and several tables. This is a simple system that offers the feel of playing against a human opponent, but without the burdens of wading through endless flowcharts. In this playthrough, I am including the expansions Lords of Middle-earth and Warriors of Middle-earth, as well as the Council of Rivendell variant. I've created a few tables to help me choose whether the Free Peoples will begin the game with any of the alternate companion cards, and to decide whether those companions will begin the game outside the Fellowship and in their nations of origin. The Lords of Middle-earth expansion comes with extra dice, and for the Free Peoples player, specifically, they have something called the Keeper's dice. And the rulebook reads, the Keepers of the 3 Elven Rings yielded hidden powers that, if activated, could aid the Free Peoples. Yet they ran the risk of drawing Sauron's attention to the fate of the One Ring. Such power, and the danger inherent in using it, is represented in the game by their special action dice, as well as by their other abilities. And these 3 dice represent the 3 Elven Rings. We have Elrond's Vilya, Galadriel's Nenya, and Gandalf's Narya. When any of those 3 characters are brought into the game, the Keeper dice are added to the dice pool. And sometimes they are a benefit, and other times they are not a benefit, as each of them has the potential of adding an eye to the hunt box. So it comes as kind of a 50-50 on their use. The shadow player also has a chance to bring in additional dice. These are known as lesser minion dice. and those would belong to Gothmog and Balrog. And as those characters are brought into the game, those dice are added to the dice pools as well. So it's an interesting addition to the game. After consulting those tables, I've determined that 2 of the Fellowship members will be using their alternate character cards. Legolas, Elven Prince, and Gandalf the Grey, Keeper of Narya. Gandalf will begin the game with the Narya die, and I've determined that Legolas will begin in the Woodland Realm, outside the Fellowship. The game is now set, and we're ready to begin play. We'll begin with Phase 1, recover action dice and draw event cards. The Free People's player will begin the game with 4 action dice and the Narya die from Gandalf. The Shadow player will begin with 7 action dice, and they also will have 1 shadow token due to the fact that Legolas is beginning the game outside the Fellowship, and the Shadow player has selected that token to start the game with. The Free People's player has drawn their initial event cards. Those are revealed to be Challenge of the King, King Bran's Men, and By Chance or By Foresight. The Shadow player has drawn his event cards, but those will remain hidden until we need to reveal them as a part of the solo rules. Phase 2 is the Fellowship phase. The Fellowship begin the game in the Elven fortress of Rivendell. Gandalf the Grey will begin as the guide of the Fellowship. Phase 3 is the Hunt allocation phase, and as a part of my solo rules, I've developed a table called the Hunt allocation table. I'll bring that up on the screen. And with this table, we'll be able to determine how many hunt dice will be placed in the hunt box. You'll notice at the bottom of the table there are a few modifiers that may apply. And in this case, one of them is add +1 to the roll if the Fellowship is in Rivendell and the Fellowship progress marker is less than 5. So we're going to make a 2d6 roll, and we're going to add 1 to the result, and that will tell us how many dice will go in the hunt box. The roll is a 5, that's modified to a 6, so the Shadow player will place 1 die in the hunt box. Phase 4 is the action roll. The Free People's player will be rolling 4 action dice and the Narya die from Gandalf. Okay, here's their roll. And they've rolled 3 character dice, an event die, and another event die. The Shadow player will be rolling 6 action dice as 1 has been placed in the hunt box. Here's their roll. And they have rolled 3 character dice, 2 muster army, and an event die. Now it's Phase 5, action resolution, and we'll begin with the Free People's player. The Free People's player are going to play a character die, and they're going to declare a Fellowship progress action that will move the Fellowship progress marker 1 space on the track. And now the Shadow player will conduct his hunt for the ring. The Shadow player has 1 die in the hunt box, so that'll entitle them to a 1d6. A result of a 6 would be a successful hunt. Here's the roll. They rolled a 2, so that's a failure. The character die is going to be added to the hunt box, and any future rolls on the hunt rolls will be at a +1 modifier for the Shadow. It's now the Shadow player's turn, and we're going to be utilizing a table called Sauron's Gaze table. And what this table is going to do is this will direct the Shadow player to perform an action in a specified area with a primary and secondary objective. It'll be a 2d6 roll. I'll bring this up on the screen. And you'll see at the bottom of the table there are several modifiers and indications as to how to proceed with certain results. So we're going to roll a 2d6. There is one modifier that we'll be able to use, and that's add +1 to the roll if the fellowship is in Rivendell and the fellowship progress marker is less than 5. So we'll be rolling 2d6, adding 1 to the result, and that will give us a focus for the shadow player's turn. Okay, the result is a 4 that's modified to a 5. So the focus will be Isengard. The focus is Isengard, so we need to select an action die that can be best used for the situation in Isengard. And I think what we'll do is we're going to play a muster army die. We're going to use that as a muster action, and we'll declare a diplomatic action for Isengard, moving them to the at war box. It's the Free People's opportunity to play an action, and they're going to use an event die and play the event card King Bran's Men. Recruit 2 North regular units in Dale, then draw 1 strategy event card. So we'll place 2 regular army units from the north in Dale, and then we're going to draw a strategy card. That card is revealed to be Gimborin the Old, son of Bjorn. Recruit 1 North unit, regular or elite, and 1 North leader in Carrick. It's the shadow player's turn again, and we're going to make a roll on Sauron's gaze table again and find out where his focus lies. Once again, we'll be adding 1 to the roll. Fellowship is in Rivendell, and the fellowship progress marker is less than 5. Here's the roll. They rolled a 7, that's modified to an 8, and that's Isengard once again. The shadow player will use a muster army die, and they'll play that as a muster action, and they're going to bring in a minion, and that's going to be Saruman, Corrupted Wizard. If Isengard is at war and Orthanc is controlled by the shadow, even if it is under siege, you may use 1 muster action die to place Saruman in Orthanc. So we'll add Saruman to Orthanc, and as a part of his appearance, the shadow player will gain an action die for next turn's roll. We'll add that to their dice pool. And it's the Free People's turn again. This time they're going to use an event die, and they're going to play the event Grimbjorn the Old, son of Bjorn. Recruit 1 North unit, regular or elite, and 1 North leader in Carrick. So we'll take those out of the supply. They're going to select a elite, and those will go into Carrick, building up a small force on the east side of the Misty Mountains. The shadow player is next, and we'll make a roll on Sauron's gaze table. 2d6, and the +1 modifier still applies. Here's their roll. They rolled an 8, that's modified to a 9. The focus will be Mordor. The shadow player is going to play a character die, and that will allow a character to move an army. They're going to move the force from Barad-dûr into Gorgoroth. The Free People's player have 2 action dice, and the shadow player has 3 remaining. The Free Peoples are going to pass, and that will allow the shadow player to take another action. We'll make the roll on the Sauron's gaze table, and +1 modifier is still active. They rolled an 8, that's modified to a 9. That will be Mordor again. The shadow player is going to use another character die, and they're going to declare a character move army action in Minas Morgul. And they'll move that force from Minas Morgul into North Ithilien. The Free People's player will now play a character die, and they're going to declare a Advance the Fellowship action that will move the Fellowship progress marker to 2, and now we're going to have a Hunt for the Ring roll. The shadow player has one eye in the hunt box, but there is one character die in the hunt box which will add 1 to the result of the die. So in this case, a 5 or 6 would be a successful hunt. Here's the roll. He rolled a 2 that's modified to a 3, so no success. And we place that character die into the hunt box. There's 2 of those in there now, so then any more hunt rolls would be at a +2 modifier. The shadow player is next, and we'll have a roll on the Sauron's gaze table. Roll is 2d6, and the +1 modifier is still in place. Here's the roll. They roll a 6 that's modified to a 7, so the focus will be Mordor, and their primary objective is Osgiliath. The shadow player is going to use a character die, and once again they're going to use that for a leader army movement. They're going to move the forces from Gorgoroth into Minas Morgul. And that's getting to be quite large, so I think I'll replace that with an army marker. And now the first army marker is placed in Minas Morgul, and those forces are put into the army box. And we've placed those forces in the top half of the first army box. And that consists right now of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 regulars, 1 elite, and a Nazgul. And the Free Peoples player are going to play their last die, that's a character die. And they're going to use a special action from Legolas, Elven Prince. And that reads, Prince of Mirkwood. If Legolas is in an elven stronghold, you may use any action die to advance the elven nation 1 step on the political track. And that's what we'll do. Legolas is in the Woodland Realm at present. So with that action, the elves will move 1 step closer to the at-war box. The shadow player is down to their last action die. They do have a shadow token, but when the shadow player is down to their last action, we don't use the Sauron's gaze table. That's a part of my solo rules. And instead, that last action is played to best effect anywhere on the map. So we're going to take a look at the map and see what we can do with that event die. I've examined the options for the shadow player, and he's decided to use the event die to draw a strategy card. We won't reveal it at this time. And their last action will be to use their shadow token, and that will allow a political marker to be moved 1 space towards the at-war box. And they're going to select the Mordor political marker, moving them to the at-war box. And that completes Phase 5, the action resolution phase. Phase 6 is victory check. None of the teams have any victory points, so we will move on to a new turn. We begin the second turn with Phase 1, recover action dice and draw event cards. The Free Peoples player will recover 4 action dice, and as the Fellowship moved during the last turn, the Narya die from Gandalf will also be available. The shadow player will be recovering 8 action dice this turn, as the addition of Saruman added an extra action dice to the pool. The Fellowship phase is next. The Fellowship last known position is at the Elven Fortress of Rivendell, and the Fellowship progress marker is currently at 2. There's no corruption. We'll keep Gandalf as the guide, and that will allow the Free Peoples to roll the Nara die. Phase 3 is the hunt allocation phase. The shadow player will roll 2d6 and consult the hunt allocation table. The +1 modifier is still in effect, and that's add +1 to the roll if the Fellowship is in Rivendell and the Fellowship progress marker is less than 5. Here's their 2d6 roll +1. They rolled a 5 that's modified to a 6, so once again they'll be placing 1 action die into the hunt box. Phase 4 is the action roll phase. The Free Peoples will be rolling 4 action dice and the Nara die. And the result is 2 event die, 2 character die, and a muster die. The shadow player has placed 1 die in the hunt box, and they'll be rolling 7 dice during this step. Here's their roll. Okay, they have 1 eye, which will be added to the pool. That will give them 2 eyes. They have 4 event dice, a muster die, and a muster army die. And now we'll begin phase 5, action resolution, beginning with the Free Peoples. The Free Peoples player will play an event die and play the event Wizard Staff. Play on the table if Gandalf the Grey is in the Fellowship. You may discard Wizard Staff to prevent the shadow player from drawing a hunt tile. You must discard this card from the table immediately if Gandalf the Grey leaves the Fellowship. All right. The shadow player is next, and will make a roll and consult Sauron's gaze table. That'll be a 2d6 roll, and we'll be adding 1 to the result because the Fellowship is in Rivendell and the Fellowship progress marker is less than 5. 2d6 plus 1. That's a 5 modified to a 6, and Sauron's focus is Dol Guldur Moria area. The shadow player is going to use their muster die, and they're going to recruit. They are going to recruit 2 regulars, 1 in Moria and 1 in Dol Guldur. The Free Peoples player are going to use an character die, and they're going to declare a Fellowship progress action. So with the play of a character die, we have a Fellowship progress action that will move the Fellowship progress marker to 3, and the shadow player will conduct his hunt. He has 2 dice in the box. The shadow player will roll 2d6. On a result of a 6, the hunt is successful. Here's their roll. They rolled a 1 and a 5, so no success. We'll be placing that character die in the hunt box to indicate that the Fellowship has moved this turn, and then that will apply a 1+1 modifier to any future hunt rolls. The shadow player is next. He's going to roll on Sauron's gaze table and find out where his focus is being placed. We still have a +1 modifier that is active. They roll a 6, that's modified to a 7. Sauron's focus is in Mordor, and his primary objective is Osgiliath. The shadow player is going to use a muster army die. They're going to play that as an army die, which will allow them to move 2 armies. First movement will be to take the first army from Minas Morgul, and we're going to move that into South Ithilien, putting us into a combat position against our objective, Osgiliath. We have 1 more action left, and we can take that anywhere on the board. We've fulfilled our obligation to the Mordor focus. And I believe what we will do is we'll switch to Dol Guldur and make a movement in that area. We're going to move the entire force from Dol Guldur with the exception of 1 regular, which we'll keep as a garrison, and we'll move that force to North Anduin Vale. I've selected North Anduin Vale as it is still the same distance from Dol Guldur to Lorien as it would be from if I move to South Anduin Vale. And the advantage is, in case we wish to choose to change our objective, we'd be closer to the Woodland Realm. So it creates a little bit more uncertainty for the Free Peoples player. Now it's the Free Peoples player's turn, and as we have the Wizard Staff on the table, that'll give us some protection. So I'm going to use a character die, and we're going to advance the Fellowship. So the Fellowship will play a character die. We'll advance the progress marker 1 space to 4, and now the shadow player will conduct his hunt for the ring. There's already 1 character die in the hunt box, so they'll be adding 1 to their roll. There's 2 eyes in the hunt box and 1 character die, so we'll be adding 1 to the result. Result of a 6 will equal a successful hunt. Here's their roll. They rolled 2 4s, so both of those are modified to 5s. No success. We'll add that character die to the hunt pool. And the shadow player's turn is next. We're going to roll on the Sauron's Gaze table, and the +1 modifier is still in effect. It'll be a 2d6 roll. Rolled a 5, that's modified to a 6, and that indicates the focus will be Dol Guldur and Moria region. The shadow player is going to use one of their event die, and they're going to play the event Threats and Promises. Play on the table. When Threats and Promises is in play, the Free People's player cannot advance a passive nation on the political track using a muster action die. You must discard this card from the table as soon as a Free People's nation advances on the political track, either due to an attack or due to a companion's special ability. And now it's the Free People's player's turn, and they are going to use this event die and play a special ability from Legolas. And that reads, Prince of Mirkwood. If Legolas is in an elven stronghold, you may use any action die to advance the elven nation 1 step on the political track. And that will automatically cancel Threats and Promises that has been played on the table by the shadow player. And that will advance the elven nation 1 step, and they're 1 step away from the at war box. It's now the shadow player's turn, and we'll roll for Sauron's Gaze. The +1 modifier is still active. The fellowship is in Rivendell, and the progress marker is less than 5. Here's their roll +1. They rolled a 6, that's modified to a 7, so the action will be in Mordor. The shadow player is going to use one of their event die, and they're going to play the faction event Servants of Sauron. Draw 3 cards from the faction event deck, add 1 card to your hand, then reshuffle the remaining 2 cards into the deck together with the faction event cards in the discard pile, including this one. The Free People's player have 1 die left. It's a muster die, and they're going to use that to move Rohan 1 box down towards the at war box. Shadow player has 2 dice left. Make a roll on the Sauron's Gaze table. And we still have a +1 modifier. Roll is a 7, that's modified to an 8. That is Isengard. The shadow player is going to play a event die, and they're going to draw a strategy card. Shadow player has 1 die left. It's an event die, and they're going to use that to play the event Orcs Multiplying Again. Recruit 3 Sauron regular units in Dol Guldur and 3 Sauron regular units in Mount Gundabad. So we'll place 3 regulars in Dol Guldur and 3 regulars in Mount Gundabad. And that finishes Phase 5, the action resolution. Phase 6 is victory check. Neither team has met their victory conditions, and that will end the turn. And I think I will also end the video at this point. Thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you again for episode 2 of my solo playthrough of War of the Ring. Have a good evening.